Hi, Derek Rougeau here with Rougeau Knives, and in this video I'm going to be making my bare bones Wakizashi. And I made some bare bones Tontos, 8-inch, 12-inch, 16-inch, and then I had some 20-inch and 24 inches that I didn't finish. So they started out from a sheet of 1095, and I had a water jet cut so I can get a nice gradual bow in the blade. At this point, I need to grind the scales off and clean it up. It also has a slight bow in it because the sheet wasn't perfectly flat. So as it heats up, when I'm grinding the scales off and finishing the side, I'll put it into my jig and straighten it. By the time I'm done, it should be straight. So the Tontos were pretty popular. A lot of questions. A lot of people want me to make some more of them. But I have so many projects going on right now, like this. I'm going to finish these. And I thought I'd shoot a video and explain why I chose to do some of the things I'm doing on these, because these are more tactical, not traditional. Traditional Tontos, Wakizashis, katanas are a lot of work. And you're looking at, 1,000 or more to make something like that. Well, these are going to be affordable. And also it's something that you can go out and use as chopping and like a machete, so it's kind of like a cool machete, and you're not going to be afraid to scuff it up and work it. So that's the goal: make it tough, sharp, attractive, and at the same time make it affordable. So as I go through the process, I'll talk a little bit more in detail about why I chose to do some of the things I've done on the other ones and what I'll be doing on these. Thanks for watching. So as I mentioned earlier, you can definitely see the bow in the blade here. It's definitely warped pretty bad, but it won't be a big deal. I'll straighten that out. For those of you out there who are knife makers, this is a cool product. It is a ceramic bubble belt, and this is specifically used for descaling steel. So when you have this, your gray scaling on your knives, you can go in here and grind it off. But that's all it's good for, is just removing the scales, and then you're going to have some pitting, and then you move to whatever grit you want to use, say 50. Okay, so the blade is now descaled. So we got all the scaling off both sides. So there's some pitting on that side. We'll get that with a 220 grit belt. And then now it's actually flat. So when I showed you me straightening it, it took more attempts than what you saw. So I went back and forth quite a bit to really get it straight. Okay, now I'm going to grind the face of the blade with a 3M Trizac belt. It's a 220 grit. This is a used one, but they last a long time and they run really cool. They're nice belts, but they're a little pricey. They're $7 and change. Anyways, so I'm just going to finish out the blade with this belt. Okay, we got the blade prepped, and it is sanded down to 220 on the belt grinder, and also my edges. Also did a subtle bevel on these here. It's a little comfortable in the hand. And this one I had already prepped and marked. So basically I'm just going to go in and mark where I'm going to be doing my grinds. Alright, I'm marking the edge thickness where I want to grind to. Get about 30 thousandths thick is the final thickness before heat treat. I want to go. And that's how high we'll grind up on the blade. And we'll mark it on the top so I can see it from above. Alright, it's all marked and ready to grind. Okay, so I have my work rest set up to do the swedges on the back of the blade. So I'm going to come in here and it'll be a subtle hollow grind. Just work that across on both sides with a 50 grit belt, and then I'll come in with some finer belts and clean it up. So we'll get that started. Okay, so now we're back to a 220 grit belt. We already got our profile going here for our swedge, and now I'm just going to go in and remove all those scratch marks and also move this grind line down just a bit and even things out. Wedges are all ground to 220, so evened them out, brought my grind line down a little lower, so I'm pretty happy with it. So now the main grind, that will be next. Okay, now it's time to do the main grind on all four of these here. Now this is a Wakizashi made from T10 tool steel, similar to W1, and the edge is ground. It's a flat grind from the edge to the spine, and then they put a blood groove in there. It's extremely sharp, but the problem with it is the edge is, because it's razor sharp, it's a little fragile. So if you hit anything hard, it's going to chip it. Okay, and of course it has the hamon, so it's differentially heat treated. And the tontos I make are actually hollow ground. So there's a subtle hollow ground in there with a 12-inch wheel. And then I put a secondary grind on the edge. And this makes it easier for the end user to actually sharpen, resharpen one of these blades. It's still really sharp, but it doesn't have the smooth geometry that this does. But you gain more strength by grinding it this way. And I'm reducing a little bit of weight by doing a hollow grind. And also you can resharpen it over and over, and you're not going to start getting a fat edge and then all of a sudden it's not sharp anymore. So that's kind of the difference between a traditional Wakizashi and a, my version, my bare bones version. Also, it's a little easier to make, to do a secondary grind instead of having to polish this out completely. Because if you were to use this and then you would get scratches on the side and you'd start to wash away your hamon and your edge would get dull, you have to sharpen it across the entire surface of this blade, and that would wash out all the etching work, and then you would have to repolish it and re-etch it. It's a lot of work, so I'm trying to keep it simple, make it inexpensive, make these inexpensive and tough. So that is why I'm not doing a flat grind. I'm doing a hollow grind with a secondary cutting grind. Now I'm going to switch to a new 50 grit belt and fine tune my grinds down to where I want them, and then after that go through and start going through the grits and polishing it out. Okay, so now I have to sand the sides here, recalcitrant area, and get this down to 400 grit. So I'm going to use 400 grit adhesive automotive paper. It works well. It just sticks to this block and it should go pretty quick. So just getting the dye off and getting all the scratches out from dragging it on the work rest. So there's a little scratch there, but I'll work at it and then flip it over and do the other side. Okay, now it's time to get my stamp on there. I have my setup here with the 2-ton press, which makes a more consistent and even stamp when you press down on it. Let's lower a bit. The blade's so long it's wobbling. And there it is.